Hello and welcome to Sam's on Wrestling, and I'm joined by Baby Sam. This is our Yay and Nay series where we look at the pros and the cons of a certain thing, and we are looking at something much older than you, which isn't surprising because you're a baby. We're looking at something older than me.
Oh my goodness.
Survivor Series. We are going to Yay and Nay, the pay-per-view of Survivor Series. It's November. Survivor Series is very, very prominent in this sort of area, and I thought it was a good place to come and have a chat about Survivor Series. Very short, quick Yay and Nay, because how much can you talk about the concept of a pay-per-view with itself? But I thought it'd be an interesting one to chat about because got different generations of Survivor Series, plus I know the history of it a little bit more as well.
Of course, you were there.
I was there. Well, actually, I wasn't. I just told you it's older than me.
No, Sam, I'm still going to make jokes.
Told you it's older than me.
You are old, you are arthritic, you are ancient, you are a fossil. See? Look how I can do it. Way better.
It's very stiff and rigid. Anyway, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and put in the comments what you think are the pros and cons of Survivor Series. Sam, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, I think I'd like to go with the pro first. I think I'm more pro-heavy on Survivor Series. All of my cons are based around the fact that it's misused rather than is bad. My first one is it's a good big pay-per-view with lots of history and lore, with a theme that's very open to interpretation. So the Royal Rumble, it's the Royal Rumble. We all know what that is. Survivor Series, you can, and they don't, which we'll get to. You can do loads of different stuff with the Survivor concept. Again, you can do your 5-on-5s, which I like if they're done right. You can do war games. You can do Elimination Chamber. You can do a tournament because it's who survives the tournament. You can do Iron Man, those kind of things. Elimination matches. There's loads of stuff you can do. And again, November is in dire need of a big pay-per-view right
Absolutely.
There,
well, it used to be the Thanksgiving. They literally did it the day before Thanksgiving. So it actually didn't used to be on a Sunday. It used to be on whatever day was before Thanksgiving. So it's been on things like Wednesdays and stuff like that. And history is the first thing I've got. You cannot replicate history. And I'm an old-fashioned type of guy when it comes to traditions and histories. I don't think things should be taken away just because you can make more money or just because it doesn't maybe make as much money as well. You just have to reinvigorate it without completely changing the concept. And I do think Survivor Series has that history. There's so many things that you can attach to Survivor Series, and I wouldn't want to get rid of it either. I mean, and I'll throw this in there now. How many famous debuts, returns have happened at Survivor Series?
Yeah.
You get your big heel moments at SummerSlam usually, your big babyface moments at WrestleMania, but Survivor Series sometimes is the kind of build towards the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I was going to put on, like, if you do it right, the road to Mania truly begins at Survivor Series.
It can do.
It can, if you want it to, and it has plenty of times. But you, to your point, you've had Undertaker, you've had Sting.
Sting, I was going to say, yeah.
That's Survivor
They're
Series.
They're the three that immediately come to my mind.
Yeah, and there's plenty more that I'm not thinking of the top of my head on. No, I completely agree. I think that lore with that's where the screw job happened. That's where this happened. Where it all feeds into magical things can happen at Survivor Series. It builds that bit of excitement as opposed to a random Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in October.
It should be the last pay-per-view of the year. I've always believed that, and I think culminate the year, finish your storyline so you can start the road to WrestleMania fresh. And I don't understand why they don't go, we've had our summer moments happen. Let's build towards Survivor Series. But because they pigeonholed it with, and let's go with our first nay, pointless matches. The amount of pointless Survivor Series matches. So obviously the first time it turned up, when they first did the new concept, it was a brand new concept. Every match was a Survivor Series match. And it was like that for a few years until they had Undertaker versus Hogan at Survivor Series 91. That was the first singles match. And then they went back to it. And then they went again. From that point on, we had singles matches. But like the amount of pointless, we're going to put... And it's been my lockbox from this week, this month. So if you watched our lockbox video, I have talked about it. So I won't go massively into detail as much. But I have thrown in to the Survivor Series elimination matches. Almost all of them are terrible because they're pointless. Even if you have good matches and they're put together, they don't mean anything. The ones that mean something, and we'll get to those obviously later, they're great. But the pointless times where the matches don't mean anything or the pay-per-views are meh because some of the big hitters just don't turn up there. Like, didn't we have Cody versus Nakamura was like the main event at one point, and Cody wasn't even the champion at the time. And it's just like, what were the Big Show, Randy Orton and things. And they've wasted it because they are saving the big stuff for the WrestleManias, and I'm like, don't. Royal Rumble has no singles matches.
Yeah, you don't need like a Brock to turn up at the Rumble because you don't have to sell the Rumble. It's the Rumble.
Yeah.
I'd rather book Brock for Survivor Series.
That's what I would have done.
One-on-one.
We're talking Brock as in when he was like as a part-time is what we're talking about there.
Back then,
same for Roman Reigns.
When he'd be champion, you book Brock versus Balor there, and then he can have the Rumble off. The Rumble sells itself; it always will.
The Royal Rumble, you should have your tag teams having big matches, which they did. They went with Motor City Machine Guns versus DIY. Didn't quite work, but that's what you do at the Royal Rumble.
All your main eventers are in the Rumble. That makes it exciting. That sells it.
And yeah, that's what I would do. But they wasted Survivor Series by also doing things, not just pointless matches, but they turned it into Battleground. They made it Raw versus SmackDown.
Oh, you mean bragging rights?
Bragging rights.
That's what you mean. Yeah, that's on my list.
Bragging rights. Oh, it would have been a funny joke. As you know, Raw versus SmackDown 2005. Great. They had a few matches on the card. It was a bit overshadowed by Eddie Guerrero's death. But it was really good because Raw and SmackDown never crossed over. They'd only had one draft at that point. Maybe two. Two. Yes, they'd had two at that point. The first one was like Rene Dupree had gone over, and then the second one they moved all the big hitters because they'd been on their shows for about 3 years at that point. So that was the first time they moved it. So people still had brand loyalty still, and it still mattered. And the Raw vs SmackDown was exciting because they never really met that much, bar your Royal Rumbles, your King of the Rings, and the occasional Mania matches. Doing this every single year, but you had a draft every single year, and not just a draft. It wasn't a supplementary. It was a real draft where you redrafted everybody, which meant no one had brand loyalty. So the Raw and SmackDown matches were so boring because whoever won didn't mean anything. Why didn't the winners get the Royal Rumble spot, the last Royal Rumble spot?
There's so many
they
things
won. They got to they get the main event of WrestleMania this year.
They all get title shots, or like
they all get a title
like
shot,
wish or something.
Anything.
And remember that year when Raw pummeled SmackDown? It was a big
6-0, technically 6-1.
Yeah, it was this massive thing.
Why make it 6-1 if you're going to go for the clean sweep?
I don't know. Who was the SmackDown one?
The pre-show by the New Day.
Yeah, so there's no point. That just shows how stupid they are. But there should have been a massive thing on A, Raw, but B, especially SmackDown. There should have been a massive crackdown and like, the consequence of you've all failed, what's going to go on? Is the GM going to be more totalitarian? All this stuff. Anything. But there was no reference to it. It didn't matter, even though we'd been told for the weeks before that it did. So again, it was one of those classic examples of WWE selling us for 3 weeks. This is the most important thing ever. And then after it happens, just going, oh, we don't even talk about this anymore. And we're trained to not care about things. And that was a Survivor Series to a T.
And because nothing happened the next night on Raw, we then had 2 months, 6 weeks of just nothing happening.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, like, oh god, the football season, it completely ruins everything. It's like, no, you never tried. You didn't put the effort in.
Also, that's then a license to make bolder choices and go a bit like creative and
put some new main
let's just see what Chad Gable can do. For example, push Chad Gable. Just push someone into the main event scene, see if they stick, because then you can say, well, we're not getting as much ratings at the moment anyway, or bloody, but it doesn't matter.
But
so at least give them a go. Do something different. Do something creatively that you might not do at Mania season. Something.
Yeah.
But very, very rarely is that the case.
Do you know what? Let's lead on to the thing we're talking about here, because we're going a little bit more fantasy booking and why you're not doing something. Let's talk about what they have done, which is more the point. And I think you've kind of referenced it. It hasn't been relevant probably since 2014. It's never treated as a big deal. That is the last time it was a big deal.
War Games in 2022 was quite big.
Only because it was new and exciting, but I wouldn't say it was relevant necessarily. Because
it was big.
It was big. I will allow that one. We've had
but it was more for one match.
One match, not the pay-per-view.
Yeah,
the War Games match was relevant. I don't think Survivor Series.
And then 23 was only Punk's return.
Punk return
Survivor Series.
That's what I'm saying. You've got so many great things.
No,
exactly.
But that was relevant because of that. If you'd have ended at the War Games, good main event. By the way. Good. Randy came back and all that.
Yeah, too.
But that War Games didn't need to be there. It needed to be a War Games match. And then this year, I'd argue they kind of forced it in there because they knew they were doing a War Games, so let's do the Bloodline again. And they didn't really execute it for me, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that like the relevancy of it is what you were kind of getting at, and it kind of just feels like we drift. We drift at the back end of the year, and you're absolutely right. You could put over the new stars, and you could make it something worthwhile. You could also do a bit crazy storylines.
100%.
They did that in Survivor Series 2003, because that's what I'm going to mention. One of my favourite shows of all time is Survivor Series 2003, because it uses the element you said. Let's just throw it in there just to make it official. Yay! Of the concept of Survivor. We had not only the 2 Survivor Series matches, but you had an ambulance match and a buried alive match.
Perfect.
It was a fun show. It was a great show. It was mental. Both 5-on-5 matches meant something. Angle and Brock trying to get one over on each other from their long storied history, and they picked their teams and they built storylines around picking the team. So that's mild. But then you had the Raw one with Stone Cold Bischoff, where you didn't know who was going to win, because you didn't know if Stone Cold was going to get fired, or the old Stone Cold, 'cause that's also a storyline. Didn't really know where we were going to go with that, and that was exciting, because they literally took something and went, right, let's do something. Let's have Survivor matches going on. Let's have big matches. They built up loads of stories that culminated. That is the only time I've seen Survivor Series genuinely culminate all this stuff happen, because that was the end of Angle Brock.
Yeah.
That was the end of those two having their story. Then we got Cena's babyface turn happened within it as well to build to the Mania. We've got Goldberg and Triple H story you thought was going to end. It didn't, but whatever. It was kind of the end, but then they threw Kane in there. Kane and Shane finished it. Undertaker and Vince McMahon finishes there. Stone Cold finished there. It was a culmination show, and it was excellent.
And then the year before, you had the Elimination Chamber debut there, which really goes into the Survivor thing.
Era, yeah.
It debuted there. So,
it mattered, yeah.
It should matter, and it should be just a place in the calendar where we go, this is our big event, you can do loads of different things, but we just have to do arbitrary. It's become War Games now. You may as well just call it the War Games pay-per-view.
I think it is now the War Games, and let's talk about War Games. I hate War Games.
In its current structure, yeah.
I hate it. I'm sorry. Like, I know it was such a big deal in WCW. I don't see the point in the two rings. I still don't see the point, other than, we've got loads of... It's because we've got loads of wrestlers doing one thing.
It looks
don't
cool.
care. The cage without a roof, don't care about, but you get to do exploding spots. But the match is boring. And the match is boring because nothing needs to happen until the last person arrives. I still don't understand why it's not elimination. I still don't get it.
Because it would make so much more sense, whereas now in the current state it's basically just, okay, here's why everyone's going to be selling at the end. Let's just work Jay and Jimmy Uso so that we can justify the fact that they're going to look tired at the end. Not, let's see who can stay in it, who's going to make it to the final one. And then how exciting would it be? It's almost bordering on Russo, but it's not, because it's logical and it's still exciting. But it's that right mix of, okay, see who can survive till the end, Survivor Series. And then once the last person comes in, next 4 wins.
Then War Games starts.
Exactly.
And that's what War Games is. So the idea that you could literally have the person coming in last is on their own. But you also, it's like tactics. Who are you sending in last who's guaranteed to be in the match? Who do you think you can survive? Who can go long? Who's going to be there? All those things. You could also have a feud where someone's going, you're on my team, and I'm sending you out first.
Imagine, Sam.
So many things you could do.
Imagine the Elimination Chamber, right? But it only starts, you can only get a 4 when the last person comes in.
Yeah, literally, it'd be so boring.
Would be stupid, wouldn't it?
It'd be so boring.
That's what it is.
And I don't understand why it is an elimination. I know they're trying to stick with tradition with it, and I just said about tradition, but it's so dull.
Traditions evolve through time.
And all of them being in a cage as well is really pointless. Why not have the music come off and they enter?
Oh yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, I don't get that
again,
either.
that's the whole tradition thing. That's what they did back in WCW.
But, yeah,
so have to do. But that's when's that been a rule? Let's do what WCW did. When have we ever played by those rules?
I know, it's bizarre. I hate War Games. If you want to go see our full take on it, we did a controversial take on the War Games match. God, nearly a year ago now. It might be a year ago now. But for me, I hate the match type. I think it's really boring. And I think it's pigeonholed Survivor Series. Literally, Triple H got rid of every gimmick pay-per-view that didn't have its own thing. Like Royal Rumble's a gimmick pay-per-view, but that's a Royal Rumble to build. King of the Ring, same principle, as well as Money in the Bank. But they are a thing. He got rid of the idea of this is a gimmick match. There was no TLC anymore. There was no Hell in a Cell. You've then done War Games and you've pigeonholed the same thing because you have now to create the 5-on-5, which is what Vince got sick of. He got sick of creating those 5-on-5 tag team matches, but you should build a storyline around it because you know it's coming. That's the thing. Same for War Games. You know it's coming, and when you can build it, it's fine. But so let's talk about those Survivor Series matches briefly. So let's talk about it from the negative standpoint. First of all, matches just thrown together. Okay, I know we talk about pointless, but it's the idea that they're also thrown together. So even if there's people feuding, so there's a point, you finish the match and it doesn't matter. Yeah. Why am I tagging with you? But then when they get thrown together, I'm teaming with you. Why? Because we're on the bad guy's side. Pointless. I want them to be a reason. I want you to have picked me. That's fun. I like the idea of a captain going out and finding his team. That's at least interesting. I know it doesn't seem as interesting.
You've had a character make choices.
Yes.
That's what a story should be about.
And why they come to your thing. We watched it with TNA with the Lethal Lockdown review that we're going to be that came out a couple of months ago. Kurt Angle picking his team. That's really interesting. And how Christian got his. He promised everyone a title match. Great. And that led into the match. Really, really, really good. The matches are so long, Sam. And if your match is really pointless, it's so long.
Yeah.
It's so boring. And when a match is long and you're just waiting for falls to happen, and the falls sometimes are boring and there's no suspense because you've got to get to the end because you're trying to get to their command. It's like the lull in the Royal Rumble. If you're having a bad Royal Rumble, God, it can feel long.
Yeah.
Like, I love the Royal Rumble. It's my favourite match type. I think it's everybody's favourite match type. But if you have a bad Rumble, think 1995, and that's a 1 minute one. 1997, 2012. You know, these like kind of average Royal Rumbles, and you've got the jobbers and the mid cards and the tag teams. You're like, can we get to the main eventers now? Come on, we got to get through
Especially
this.
when they did the 5 and 5 to the lower card people as well.
Which is actually what I'm going to finish off. There are some of the worst matches in history. Now, I'm not going to go into them here because we are going to be doing a top 10 favourite Survivor Series matches. So this is the traditional
top 5
favourite and our favourite. And we're also doing the worst as well on the same video. So we will talk about some of the worst matches in history there. But I'll just point out here, doinks. So we will get to that. But then the Survivor Series matches, on the positive front, when you make them and they mean something, they are some of the greatest matches of all time. We've literally they are some of the worst of ever, full stop, and they're some of the greatest. Let's just go through some of the greatest matches of all time. 2001 is still one of the famous. Invasion, you can talk about what you want with Invasion.
I still think that is the best use of the 5 and 5 ever.
It is probably the greatest use of it.
Yeah.
Literally, whoever wins, the company goes out of business. I mean, yay, fantastic. Then, as I've already mentioned, in 2003, Shawn Michaels' moment. I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. 2004, whoever wins gets Raw. Gets to run Raw. And then 2014, The Authority, which they then undercut. I don't know why they undercut it.
On the night.
But on the night, it was magic. And those matches will live in infamy because of what they meant. And I don't understand why you can't do that. The running Raw thing is the simplest one. If you're just running out of ideas, do that because it's still interesting. You can do it every year. And it doesn't matter. So for me, yeah. But what do you think about the traditional Survivor, what I've just said there, to be honest, Sam?
I think you've really covered everything on it. The 5 on 5, I think, should be used really sparingly. I still go back to what I said towards the beginning of the video. I think all of these different kind of stipulations should be kind of just rotated around, not arbitrarily, like, okay, this year we have to do the tournament, this year we have to do chamber. No. Just see what fits this time of year. Even a gauntlet match, Sam, like a big gauntlet.
I think that'd be great.
Anything like
Tag team
that.
turmoil.
You can switch up, and to me it's just laziness because they're going, right, we're in the dark season now, barely anything's going on, and that's how it has to be. But why is that how it has to be? Why can't it be interesting? Why can't we make an interesting story? So no, I agree. All my criticisms of it is how it's been used, like the SmackDown vs Raw stuff, the War Games, the repetitive and lazy stipulations, like let's just chuck 4 5 and 5 here for no reason that haven't been built. But there's so much you can do with Survivor Series, and it's the pay-per-view that, more than a Mania, because I think a Mania has to have a certain level of spectacle. You don't get the same creative license to Mania. It's got to be a certain thing. Rumble, again, you can be creative in a Rumble, but it's a Rumble. SummerSlam, maybe a little bit. But the Survivor Series, as opposed to Money in the Bank as well, you've got loads of different things you can do with Survivor Series. Loads of different things. It's the biggest pay-per-view that gives you kind of a really big toolkit of things you can use.
Blank canvas.
Yeah, and you're literally just using one brush every single year. We switched
that ran out of paint.
Yeah, exactly. We switched from the red and blue paint a few years ago, and now I've got this yellow paint that we borrowed from NXT and stole off them and doing the War Games.
I enjoyed NXT with the SmackDown vs Raw. That was the only time it was ever good because it was a storyline. NXT invaded. Thank God the plane didn't take off in Saudi for that to actually happen. Otherwise, what would have happened that year? And the only yay I've got left to finish on, pretty much on everything you've just said, is because of how it sets up the pay-per-view and even the Survivor Series matches. You can literally put over someone so easily. The 3 that immediately come into my mind, actually 4, pardon me. So the first one will go backwards. Dolph Ziggler in that performance in 2014.
Sensational.
That was the only time I ever looked at Dolph and went, "Ooh, you could be main eventer." And literally it's the only time I've ever seen it. Genuinely believe that. Even when he won the title in 2012, I still didn't go main eventer. Kofi, when he was Survivor and he was in his feud with Randy Orton because he eliminated CM Punk and Randy Orton in the space of about 3 to 4 seconds. It was, and it made Kofi look like a great guy. And then this is on the same night. It made Randy Orton's career for a long time because he became Mr. Survivor Series, always surviving. He did it 3 years in a row. That was great. And Shawn Michaels in that same match, him going 1-on-3 against Christian, Jericho and Randy Orton, bloody, doing it for Austin, a man he's feuded with. It was so beautifully done. It put him over even more. It gave him higher legacy. Shawn Michaels has such a legacy that people don't talk about this enough because his legacy is incredible. But I think that's one of the greatest nights of his entire career. Yeah. I thought it was a performance that was unbelievable. And that's what Survivor Series creates. There's a magic there. Yes. And I think that magic's been lost. I think they had it a little bit with the War Games in the first year they brought it back because it was new. And outside of that, I don't think they've had it since the Authority. And I'm really disappointed that Triple H didn't really sit down and go, right, let's sort this out. Because I do think it's a missed opportunity. You can't blame TKO for that.
No.
You can't blame TKO. He literally went, I brought back War Games, everyone loved it, it did great business. And then he went, oh, we'll just do that then. And you're like...
But you're missing why things are special. It's scarcity. It's again, when someone back in the day would say, Hell in a Cell, the pop. Imagine if you did War Games maybe once every 3 or 4 years, right?
Because there's an actual team and going, well, we're going to do this in War Games. Because WCW went down the same problem. They did War Games every single year and ran into the same problem. Some were better than others.
Short-sightedness.
It really is.
Just do some Survivor Series matches or some tag team, not tag teams, tournaments or chambers, which is still going to draw. And then every now and then, when you've got a proper blood feud that can work with it or a faction, go War Games. Even women or men, just do one. The pop
only do one.
Humongous.
When you put two of the same match type on the same card, it waters them down immediately.
Yes.
Because first of all, you're not allowed to copy spots because then you've already seen it. And two, I've already seen this match and now I've got to sit through it again. And it's a long match. It's 40 minutes long and you've got to see it twice. And it never pays off. Every time. Both Royal Rumbles. When was the last time when you had both men's and women's and you went, oh, both of these matches have just nailed this. 2018 is probably the only time, and that's because there was new excitement with the women's ones because there was 1,000 returns, but the match is actually crap.
Yeah.
It's actually a crap match, and I don't think they've either done it. Every time there's been a Royal Rumble, they've either both been bad or one's been better than the other. And I think that's the problem we're running with Survivor Series by doing War Games, having one men, one women. Sometimes, most of the time, they don't even have a point or they're not even a group together. And I think it needs to be sorted. I really do. But... what do you think of Survivor Series? What are your pros and cons? What are your yays and nays? Please let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye!